Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's Creating Conscious Relationships. I'm Catherine.
And I'm John.
And we are excited to talk to you guys tonight about holding a positive mindset when it comes to relationships. But before we begin that, we did have one of our viewers write in to ask a question. Over the past couple of months, we've covered a few different topics, and the topic that they were actually writing in about was about when we were talking about being the observer in the relationship. So I'm just going to pull up their message here and I will read it out loud.
Yep.
And then we'll discuss it. Yep. And then we'll go into talking about having a positive mindset in relationships. So the question is, hiya, I just finished watching your video on being the observer. I really like what you both had to say. When you talked about allowing the other person to bring up what they are feeling while I am talking about how I am feeling, what came up for me is I think that my husband doesn't really talk about what he is feeling, but he brings up something about himself to distract from what I am saying, and then I am left feeling like my situation gets lost. So how can I allow this to happen for me to honor him without my feelings getting lost? I really believe he does it to distract from the hard stuff. I would love to hear what you both have to say about this. Thank you. So, do you want to?
Well, yeah, a great job being the observer, right? Because there's a lot of things that were picked up on.
Yep.
When you're going from a positionality, it's a lot more difficult. When you're an observer, you can see these little things. Oh, this is what happened here, and this is what happened there. So, great job being the observer. So in saying being the observer, you're able to see that, there's some things that maybe not the right time. Maybe there's some uncomfortability there. So some hesitation to want to open up, right? So, in being the observer, I would be taking notes. Okay, what is going on right now around me? Is this a good time? Is this, is it the right time of day? Are we comfortable?
Yeah.
Right?
So you're implying that if someone is distracted or trying to distract within a hard conversation or a tough conversation, that there might be like a level of discomfort that's happening.
That could be a wide range of different things, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. What I personally have done with us is when I notice, not that you try and distract from a conversation, but sometimes I've noticed like the wounds and stuff showing up. And that's usually when I ask, is there a wound that's showing up here? What are you experiencing right now? Because a distractor to me is just like an ego mechanism that's kicked in to go, we're getting to too close of a discomfort spot. So we do want to be very loving towards that person during that time where it's like, okay, there's a wound that's been triggered, but let's get curious about it. Because I think a lot of times what I've done in the past is I start to make these kind of stories up in my own mind about what that means. They're distracting me because they don't want to hear what I have to say. They are ignoring this problem because they don't care about how I feel. Like, we can easily fill in the blanks with what we think they're trying to do, but often it's just like an experience of being so triggered that it's like, okay, let's go to another topic here altogether.
Yeah. What I was saying there was like,
distracted.
No, but have the proper container for the discussion. It may not even be the fact that it's the hard stuff that wants to be bypassed. It could be, I've got this, or I'm not, I've got to go to the bathroom, or I've got all this stuff to do, or it may not just be a time.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm just saying that there's plenty of different possibilities as to.
Fair enough. I'm trying to narrow in on what you yourself can do as a person when that might be coming up.
Yeah, and I think that part of being the observer, you can see, okay, what was going on. So don't create that, right? And start to work on those pieces that you noticed as the observer.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're noticing a pattern of every time I start to talk about my deep emotions, that they get distracted or they try and distract you from what those deep emotions are, you can observe what's happening now in my body, right? Because sometimes we're so used to people not listening to us that we've got this kind of hard drive that's playing inside of us that goes, nobody's going to listen to me, which also would then include your husband, because, you know, you might have a lifelong pattern of nobody listens to me, or I'm never heard, or I'm never understood, or I'm not worthy of being listened to, or whatever. And so you can notice what is happening inside of you and then focus on healing that part. And it's not that we're disregarding your partner altogether, but it's like that opportunity to be there for you if they're not able to be. Because if they're distracting and trying to get away from what that conversation is, they might not be in a space to be what you need them to be right now, but you can absolutely be that for yourself. I would also be bringing it up, maybe not in that conversation, or perhaps in that conversation. To me, I'd work on the wounds first and then come back after my own wounds have been worked with.
Yeah.
To go, okay, this is what I noticed. This is what came up for me. I would like to understand more how or why do you get distracted, or why do you try to distract me? Or also, the other possibility is, I feel like you're distracting me. Is that what your intention is?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I mean, there's very good possibility that's not even the intention, right?
Because I mean, we've had that happen in our relationship on more than one occasion where I'll receive information from you and I'll make it mean one thing in my mind. And when I actually check in with you to go, hey, is this true? Is this what you really thought? Or is this what your real intention was? And he's like, no, that's...
we're starting to do a better job of being very clear about like, this is where my head's at. This is what I'm,
This is what my intention is in what I'm trying to speak to you. Because it's so easy to just fill in the blanks when you don't quite know. And unfortunately, the part of us that's usually listening to our partner is typically a wounded part, only because it's relational, right? And so we're basing it on all of our past experiences within relationships, whether that be our parents or our siblings or our teachers, classmates from school, et cetera, all that information is there listening to what this conversation is that you're having with a partner at any point in time. And all of those wounds are, see, they're not listening, see, they don't understand and whatnot. So we really want to pay attention to what are those parts and what is actually coming up for you. And that to me is where you get to actually hold on to your power in the relationship, because it's like, okay, you're giving me feedback right now as to what I can heal. You're giving me an opportunity to see what's going on inside of me that much further. And you can honor their experience too and ask yourself, when am I most apt to get distracted in a conversation?
Yeah. What does it look like for both sides, right?
Yeah.
Because you getting distracted looks very different to me than what you would think distracted is for you, right? Mm-hmm. And vice versa.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I tend to stare off into space and then I've got 20 more conversations going on in my head. So where it's, for some people it might be to pick up the cell phone, or it might be to hear of your experience and then go off on my own tangent of my own experience and not actually come back to what your experience is, which I think is actually one of the most common ones that happens in relationships, because one person shares and go, oh yeah, I did that too, or I experienced similar, or whatever it might be. But I think as long as you can overall come back to what the original conversation is and what those original emotions are that you were trying to express, you can always try and pull them back in and go, okay, so this, I was trying to express to you that I'm really hurting here and I'm really grieving this thing, and you got distracted, and that's fine if this conversation is too uncomfortable for you, but I really need to honor what's coming up for me right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was saying about others, clearing the stage for that conversation, right? It is making sure it's the right time, making sure that, hey, we need to have a conversation. We need to talk about something.
Yeah.
and trying to do it in a way that's going to foster the communication, not shut down the communication. I know I mentioned before, that famous saying that we need to talk, and kind of shuts men down. But there's always a different way. People communicate differently, right? So there's always a way to create that safe container for communication between each other.
Yeah. And to just keep your own mind curious. And when I say curious, it's like, yeah, you can be curious about yourself, but also to be curious with them. Like, oh, so I see that you're now talking about, I don't know, mangoes. And we were talking about that I was upset about groceries last week. Can you share with me?
Yeah.
How are the mangoes connected to the conversation we were having about groceries? And where do the dots connect? Because for some people there's so much train of thought that's happening inside, and I know I can do that where I jump from this to this to this to this to this, and I'm connecting all of these dots, and it can be difficult to keep up. But when I break it down to I went to here and then here and here.
Yeah, as soon as you say the first one, then I kind of get the vision
of where
how the dots connected.
Yeah, so to have those conversations and to ask those questions as well, because there's a good chance that they were listening, but it just led to this kind of thread of different types of conversation or different thoughts that came up, and now they're conversing about something that seems completely different, but to them is still connected. And when you're trying to honor the other person, you really want to understand what is their experience and what is it that they're trying to share or possibly trying to avoid, and then getting curious if they are trying to avoid, why are you trying to avoid that?
Yeah, and calling her out right in a positive way, right? I see you're not comfortable with this. Is this something we can talk about? I see that you avoid this type of situation. Is there something I can help you with on that? Is there something I'm doing that is
triggering for you?
Yes.
Yeah. And it can help to just deepen that conversation, but also add a new level of understanding to the partnership.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when we realize, like, oh, if I say something this way, it doesn't even have to be anything major, but if I say it this way, it's going to affect him in a really big way. So if I don't want to have that effect on him, maybe I can work on that myself.
Yeah.
So it can be a very loving thing, I think. And really an opportunity to deepen the relationship. But yeah, as you said at the beginning, good on you for being the observer and for noticing kind of what the pattern was that was coming up inside of you, but also that was happening outside of you, to be able to see.
Well, and have those takeaways, because those are things you can work on, right? It's like, okay, I've seen this and I've seen this. And then you can take that away and go, okay, now I'm going to observe this piece.
Yeah.
And how does that break down?
Yeah, you get to kind of be a scientist of your own life or your own relationship, which is always fun. And if you can even come back to your husband and go, okay, so last time I noticed this happened and this happened and this happened. Let's break this down. Let's look at it. And we're not necessarily talking about the original topic, but we're talking about the conversation that happened where you noticed the distraction. And let's talk about that and let's look at that and see where have we both kind of faltered. It's not about being right or wrong. It's where have our egos stepped in? Where did our woundings step in? And where did we forget what the purpose of this was? Because it happens to all of us.
Yeah, and I would say break it down into
little.
I don't want to say especially for men, but it'll be easier for small bites. And for most men, I won't say all men, but to break it down, it's like, okay, let's talk about, if there's 3 parts to this, let's talk about one this time. But I would still mention these are the things I noticed, but this is what we're going to focus on, and let's get through this piece first, and then move on to the next.
And fair enough, and that might actually be more contained, because sometimes if you bring too many pieces in all at once and you're trying to sort all of them, then you almost start to neglect all of them because you're not really focused in on one. I think that's a great point. And for men or women. Like
it's
yeah.
Goes both ways for sure.
And then I promise, so I don't like to say promises that I can't guarantee, but what I've noticed in our experience is the more we practice it, the easier it becomes, because it's like a muscle that just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's just so much easier to navigate those kind of conversations and to look at it, and where it's not even we need to have a conversation, it's like, oh, we're
gonna talk about this.
Let's have a conversation, let's get curious about it. So alrighty, so thank you so much for writing in and asking the question, and we hope that it answered. And for anybody else who is listening, if you have questions about what's going on in your own relationship, whether it be partnership or any other type of relationship, by all means, please send us your questions, because that's what we're here for.
Any questions, we'll answer them.
Yeah.
As best we can.
Yeah. And understanding that, I mean, neither one of us are experts, but we're experts in our own lives and what has worked for us. So
yeah, and we're willing to listen and willing to try and help. That's
yeah. Anyways, let's move on to our topic for tonight, which is all about holding a positive mindset when it comes to creating conscious relationships. And what does that look like?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's really interesting because it kind of goes with the question that we just answered, right? I mean, to me, always having a positive attitude is always remembering the positivity of every little thing. And it sounds really silly, but it's like taking out the garbage. You can see the positivity in that. Wow, it's just taking out the garbage. Yes, but you have the opportunity to take out the garbage. You have the opportunity to help. You have the opportunity to do these things. Some people don't and can't, right? And that's just a little bit of it. But I mean, it's approaching every situation with that positivity and seeing that in everybody around you, that you're not looking at this in a negative aspect. You're coming this from a positive aspect as well.
Yeah. And I think it's, well, actually, I'm going to share a personal story that we experienced and why having a positive mindset is important in a relationship. So about 5 years ago, we were going through a lot of difficulty in kind of our external reality. Our relationship was becoming affected because of the external reality and all of the things that were going on, the stresses that we were under, and everything that we were experiencing, and also everything we were suppressing and then like kind of taking out on each other. And it got tough, I would say. And we were debating whether or not do we stay together or do we separate here, because we don't know how to navigate this at this point. And we started to work with a psychotherapist, and he was wonderful and helped us to really start to actually have these kind of tough conversations. But one of the things that we did in that time was actually, before I get into that, we were basically focused on all the shit that was happening. It was like, you know, how if you have one bad day, then it's like all of the days have been bad days. And if your partner screws up once, then it's like all of the things that they've screwed up on.
All those negatives just keep...
It's a snowball. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so after probably, 3 weeks of us just really kind of hitting head to head, I got tired of it. And I was like, enough is enough. And so I started writing a list, and we ended up doing it together, of all of our happiest memories that we had with each other. And it was probably about 2 hours of writing this list. And we were laughing, and we were just reconnecting again and really getting in touch with what was important for us in our relationship, which it really was about the connection, and really was about the bond and the things that we had experienced together, the things that we had learned together. And during the rough period that we were essentially going through up until that moment, it's almost like we had forgotten everything that was good.
Yeah.
And that's normal in our human condition, right? Like when one thing bad happens and it's like it kind of puts this clouded spot and then it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it can erase all of the good. And if you believe in all of the negative that your mind is telling you about the relationship and forget everything else that's been good, everything that your partner has brought to you or that person in the relationship has brought to you, the good times that you've had, it can absolutely destroy a relationship. So I still have that list on my phone.
Yep.
And every once in a while, not because we're fighting or anything, but every once in a while it's like, let's go through this list again. Let's see what else can we add to this list now. And it's a nice little walk down memory lane to help us remember what the good times are.
Yeah. It keeps you in the positive, right? It keeps, like, it forces you back into that moment where this was all very positive things. So it then transcends back to you that positivity. So.
Yeah. And at the same time, I think it's so important that we honor whatever difficult emotions we're going through in that relationship, because you don't want to essentially bypass all of the negative stuff, and you also don't want to get completely stuck in all of the negative stuff. So there's a balance. And so having a positive mindset means I know or I trust that this relationship is well worth it. I trust in the love that we share more so than what any of these experiences are or any of what these actions have been in this relationship, right? And I can honor the pain when I've got a message of pain that comes up over something he's done, say 5 years ago, and it's like, that hurts me again right now, that I can now say to him, I've this part's coming up again. I don't know why, or this thing triggered it and this is how I'm feeling and this makes me sad or whatever it might be. And he can do the same to me of this is what's being triggered. This is what I need to share right now. And it's not saying the pain didn't happen. The hurtful things didn't happen, but also I'm not just going to focus on the fact that these hurtful things happened.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that, that goes back to creating that container and whatnot again. Creating that safe space to have that conversation, right?
Yeah. Like about the difficult stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I mean is, like, you don't, sometimes men will get, here we go again, right?
Yeah.
I know I've done it, but here's a chance to be positive about it but pick the right kind of timing and whatnot and the right way to do it. But here's the chance for that person, the male, to show that positive mindset where, okay, it's not this again. It is, okay, you're sharing with me. You're still hurt. It's not an offense on the person. It's a possible opportunity to look at it in a different aspect.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a great point, because I think for a lot of people, when this hurt comes up again, right, everybody's like, this again. It's that typical reaction, like, why aren't you over this thing yet? But to really invite that in and honor it and be like, okay, you're willing to share this with me again. Because it's like, if someone has hurt you, that trust has been broken, that, maybe there's been a betrayal or a rejection or whatever it might be that's happened. But if that person is still willing to talk to you about that, it means love is still there. Right? They're bringing it to you, not because they're trying to bash you or to hurt you or anything like that, but because they're going, I've still got this pain. This pain is still heavy for me to carry. Can I share it with you now? And how each person kind of reacts to it. If you react with anger when somebody's going, this is my pain, and you're like, on that pain, they're going to retract and they're going to hold on to it. And there's a good chance they're going to have to bring up that pain another time, until you're willing to actually receive it and go, let me love you in this pain. Let me understand what your pain is.
Yeah, and I would encourage not to make it that vicious cycle of, you did this, I did this, type of back and forth, because you get stuck in that, right?
You didn't do the dishes.
Yeah.
You didn't make the bed. And
and then it just continues. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be really difficult or a challenge. I don't even want to call things difficult anymore because then it just makes it seem like it's impossible. But it can be challenging if you're the person that's like on the receiving end of you made me feel like this or you did this thing. And I mean, there's a lot of response that is going to come up inside of yourself as a person. You want to protect yourself. And that's where well, you did this and I only did this because you did A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and whatever. But then there's obviously some guilt that's coming up as well. None of us want to be seen as a person who's capable of hurting other people, especially someone that we say that we love. And so there's that guilt that you also have, to deal with. And there also might be anger or resentment that you're holding on to because of the hurt that they have caused you. And so you're like ready to lash out at them. And so you're having to combat kind of all these parts within yourself while also receiving the hurt from them that they're sharing with you. So it's a challenge, right? It's climbing up a mountain, carrying a backpack and trying to juggle 5 apples all at the same time without tripping. So give yourself some grace, but you have to acknowledge all of it, right?
Yeah.
Or to even just be aware of all of it. You bring up a great point. Yeah. So why is it important to stay positive? Well, I think you can really derail a relationship really quickly by focusing on the negative. And it doesn't matter. Sorry.
Anything and everything goes back to the dishes, right? So everything then can become a negative.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't do the dishes last night. You didn't do the dishes the night before. You don't do this. Everything then becomes
a negative.
That negative void.
Yeah.
And now communication will start breaking down as well.
Yeah. Well, and another pattern that I've noticed in quite a few of the women that I talk to is like the desire to be, say, celebrated on Mother's Day or birthdays or Christmas or whatever. And then they don't want to say, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And if they say it and then the partner does it, then they are like, well, they only did it because I said it. And so it can become very vicious instead of just receiving and being grateful, like, I got to receive. It becomes kind of more negative and not even like I want to receive now.
Well, and that's a reflection, right? Like we're then setting this position or whatever. We have a vision of what that looks like. So I want this, and you don't get that. Well, the person may have done something, but they didn't do exactly what you want. So you're really letting yourself down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: is I think it's okay if you've got disappointment that comes up. That's totally fine. You can have that disappointment, but to get angry when someone is trying to gift to you, and this is where that negativity really starts to take over, right? Is
everything will be
nothing can be positive at that point, and negativity it's kind of like a cancer. It just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, and can erase the bestest of days, and make it impossible to find joy in that relationship. Make it impossible to connect in that relationship if everybody's just constantly in that battle mode, or you've got one person who's just feeling really negative and the other person who's walking on eggshells trying to avoid that negativity. Like it's a real storm that can roll in.
And don't get me wrong, we're not always positive. We try, but we'll catch each other and we'll say, well, that wasn't a very positive way of approaching it. Or whatever the case may be, but I mean,
well, we all
practicing, right? Like it's
this is my ego that's showing up right now. I know it, but I just gotta say it, and it's normal. We're human, and we can know these things, but sometimes knowing these things isn't the first reaction that we have, and that's just that humanness that happens again. But again, it's course correcting, and it's growing that muscle. It's allowing yourself to build on that strength. And I mean, I think when we share with each other, like, what I wanted to say and whatnot, when we're talking about other people and other relationships that we have with each other, we've got this kind of safe space where we can express all of that humanness without that fear of being judged. So and if both of us are in a negative spot, then we can, not even call each other out on that kind of negativity that's happening, but ultimately pull each other down, because negative energy, it's not, here's the thing. It's not that it's bad, right? We call it negative and then we automatically think this is bad energy. Yeah. It's not that it's bad. It's that it's denser. Yeah. It's more detached from the light. It's more detached from your truth. It's more detached from your divinity. And so it's denser. You know, if I asked you to feel your anger right now, you would feel kind of like a heavier sensation. If I asked you to feel sadness, you'd probably feel even heavier. And if I asked you to feel shame, you'd feel even heavier. And to hold on to that emotion for a really long time, it does feel heavy. But if I asked you to experience joy, you'd automatically feel your energy start to rise because it's a higher frequency or a more positive energy. And really what it is, and correct me if I'm wrong because you understand frequencies and stuff more, but with the, say, lower density emotions, they're kind of like this, right? And so they look like this wave, but it's very slow moving, right? It's like, whoa, where joy, happiness, acceptance, peace, all of those, they vibrate really quickly. And so they kind of go like this, and it's like a higher frequency that's happening, and it's more like a, it's the way I see it. So does that make sense?
Kind of.
Yeah, okay. It makes sense to me.
It makes sense, but yeah. Maybe not real, but I mean, it is just...
But I see it as kind of like musical notes, right? Like the higher the pitch, the faster the vibration is going. Yeah. And the lower the pitch, the lower that kind of goes. And so I see it as that. Yeah. And it feels like that in my body as well. So, but of course we can't be positive all the time. No. You know, it's the big conversation that everybody's having about not spiritually bypassing, but being positive doesn't mean you're not honoring your emotions.
Oh, you can still be negative and positive.
You can
feel very negative and trying to look at the positives, or, you know, moving in a positive manner, or
absolutely, or
doing something that you like. You still can feel whatever.
You can still feel the heaviness and the sadness and whatnot, but it doesn't mean that you're allowing yourself to just stick there.
No,
you're going, I yes, this is true, and also the sun is still shining.
And it'll be gone just like that.
Yeah. They actually say if you allow yourself to feel an emotion for 90 seconds, just 90 seconds, and allow it to, like, yourself to feel it fully, it dissolves. Most of us, what we're doing is we resist those emotions, we push them down, and then we feel them for that much longer.
And I think compassion was even less, right? It was like,
yeah, I think
15 seconds or something like that. If you show that wound like compassion, then it will dissolve really quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
Which it's hard to do sometimes because you get attached to some outcome or some whatever, and you get worked up about it. But the faster you show compassion for, okay, you know what? Hey, yeah, this happened. It is. I'll find out what it's about later in life, or there's a reason these things happen.
Yeah. Well, even just to give yourself grace that you're experiencing those emotions. Yeah. Because I think a lot of us, we get ashamed for feeling the ways that we do. And we think, I shouldn't be feeling this way, but I am. I shouldn't be reacting in such a strong way, but I am. Or I shouldn't have reacted in such a wrong way or whatever, but I did. And so we go into all of these kind of guilty emotions where there's no reason to have guilt. You're experiencing what you experience because you're experiencing it, and it's just allowing yourself to be in that and to go, okay, cool, I got to witness this, or I got to experience this. How can I use it to learn, and how can I use it to grow? Just like we were saying at the beginning about what you're observing in the conversation, is you can use however you react to these things, and whatever feels like a dense emotion or a negative emotion to you, you can then use that as an opportunity to heal yourself more or to understand yourself better, which again is having that positive mindset in a relationship. The other thing I wanted to talk about with that is holding your partner or the person you're in relationship with in a positive mindset, right? So not that I'm saying to him, you need to be positive, but rather that I'm willing to see the absolute best in him, and not just his potentiality, but what are the things that I love about him? What are the things that are good about him? Because again, when we get into that kind of negative mindset and we start to kind of swindle in it, we can start to look at every single little flaw, and those things that you once found enduring or whatever, you might start to despise if you're not careful, right? And so you don't want to get stuck in this loop of, oh, they're lazy and they snore at night and they interrupt, or they...
Always look on the opposite side of that too, right? Is all of those things that you're saying...
Is it true about you too?
What, not is it true about you, but what's the opposing to that? So, oh, he snores so loud. Yeah, but there's somebody there.
Yes, and he's alive,
you know? And
actually.
it's yes, so that's, I mean, it's giving that gratitude for all of those little things. That's that positive thing is, yes, he's snoring, yes, it's annoying, but he's there. Or, you know, sure, she leaves Coke cans here and there, but
I do.
At least you know she's here.
Yeah, it's like hard not to say something without exposing each other's like flaws. I leave Coke cans around. I absolutely do. Yeah. I've gotten better, but still happens. But it's because if you're trying to heal a relationship with someone, but you're constantly telling yourself that they're a piece of shit that's never going to change, chances are they're going to continue to be a piece of shit that's never going to change. Yeah. Right? But if you go, I can see they made this small shift, and it's not everything I want them to shift, but this one small shift, it's a change. So I'm going to hold on to that small thing right now and see what else can grow. You know, at least it's showing, hey, they care. They, you know, if it was a loving gesture or whatever it might be, they're doing something to shift, and then to encourage them with that. And it might sound silly, but one of the things I've been doing with our kids for the past couple of years is we'll do something with them. Like when our son was younger, we'd take him to the park. And then after we were done going to the park, I'd say to him, thank you so much for going to the park with me. Now, do I really need him to go to the park because I really want to go? No. But I'm trying to encourage, like, I want more time like this. I want to have this time together. Also, I want to show him have gratitude when people do different things for you or show up for you or whatever. Now, what does that look like in an adult relationship? If he does something that I really appreciate, I'm giving him my absolute appreciation for that thing, because to me, it sounds awful, but it's like rewarding a dog for learning a new trick.
It's positive reinforcement.
Yes, where it's going, yeah, I really like this, because I think ideally what most of us want in relationships is to be able to fulfill our partner with the things that they like.
Yeah.
So it's like, it kind of like when we were at Wonderland on Friday, and we had gotten like the all-day drink pass and trying to discuss what drink we were going to get, and you had said vanilla cherry Coke, and that it was he had mentioned to me right at the beginning of our relationship that he liked vanilla cherry Coke, and I was like, I never had it or whatever, and then I went out and I bought you a case for at our house, and I was like, you fell in love with me that day because of that.
That was the hook.
Yeah. But it really is just doing these small gestures. But when you're at an impasse in your relationship with someone, it can be so easy to look at, the last 20 years of all the mistakes that have happened and all of the fights that have happened and everything else, and go, these are all the reasons why I can't love them. But on the flip side of that, you can also look at what are all the reasons that you do love them, and what are all of the things that they've been doing to show you that they care, and to understand that how they show you that they care might not look the same way as how you thought they should be showing up to tell you that they care.
I was just going to say, how much of this is our perspective of what should be.
Absolutely.
Right? So, yeah.
And that's an important conversation to have, and I know we've talked about it on here, but it's such an important conversation to have, because a guy doing dishes, he might think, I am romantic, I did the dishes for her. No woman finds a man doing dishes as being romantic, right? And so that conversation needs to be had of, That's not romance. That's doing a chore. And so you have to make sure you're on that same page. Otherwise, those conflicts can happen
Well, they'll
so
just
easily.
continue and then get worse, right? If you don't have that clear communication as to this is what this looks like.
Yeah.
Easily, and if you're not consciously communicating with one another, things can easily slip into the negative realm and continue to just fester and fester and fester.
Pile up. Yeah, absolutely. And, I was just going to say something.
I mean, it is not impossible to look at every situation like the positive side. Sometimes, absolutely. But, you know, on a rainy, you get caught out in the rain. Sure, you can choose to get upset about it, or you can choose to be positive about it. The upset is going to get you angry. It's going to give you probably a heart attack or, you know, a headache or whatever. The positive side, you don't have that stress. You just let go of it.
Yeah, you just let yourself get wet in the rain.
And it is what it is.
And it becomes fun, actually. You feel like a child again.
Like, you can...
Yeah. Well, and that's a really great point, actually, is you can choose, you know. A lot of times if we've been told, you know, women get angry about this or men get angry about that or whatever, we can go, well, they did this, so I have to be mad now. And, you know, ask yourself, is that my truth? Do I truly want to, say, end my relationship because they didn't do the dishes?
Saying, is this the hill I'm willing to die on, right?
Yeah.
It's like, really, in the grand scheme of things, is this really...
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and here's the thing is I've actually left relationships in the past. Once because they bought me a fur coat for Christmas. That was my reason for leaving. And it sounds so petty and like surface level of like, what a ridiculous reason to leave somebody. And yet what was underneath that was I have never worn fur. I have never, like, it's not me at all. But what he actually said to me is, you're a mom now, so you need to start dressing like one. And I was like, no, we're done. Like, it was
that
just...
was positively out of here.
It was my way of knowing and understanding I'm done. And it might even seem silly to people now, but I know there was a part in me that was understood in that moment. This person is never truly going to understand me or respect me for who I am and who I'm becoming. I mean, in all honesty, I was 18 at the time. So fur coats, like, to me, were for like 70-year-old women, you know? And if you wear fur, my apologies, there's no offense, you do you. But for me, it was like a hell no. So you can have those moments too, where, and I mean, I definitely wasn't healed back then. There was probably a lot more going on below the surface than even what I'm aware of now. But you can have those moments where it's like, you just know, I'm just done. And that's okay. It's okay to walk away from relationships, and you can do that consciously as well. But to really
and it can be a positive too. It's
yes.
Just because something comes to an end doesn't mean it's got to be a negative.
Yes.
I mean, sure, it may end on a negative note, but it may spring a positive thing in the future. Or,
well, isn't it funny? Like, we talk about like partnership relationships, lover relationships, like the breakdown of those as being this big upsetting thing, and it truly doesn't have to be. That you could be friends with someone after you realize our love doesn't work together, or we don't work very well as partners, but we can work together as like individuals or whatever. But like when it comes to friendships, it's, you know, I don't talk to some people that I knew in public school or high school or whatever, and I hold no ill will towards them. I'm excited for them if I bump into them or whatever. It's excitement, but there's something different about like that lover relationship. I think because we're taught that it's supposed to be a lifelong thing, and when it isn't, and they broke these promises and whatever, it becomes such a negative, like the breakdown of the relationship always seems to be quite negative. And what I've noticed, and I've gone through it myself in my own relationship breakdowns, is there's a lot of like almost trying to get back what you feel you lost in the relation. Like, you know what I mean? You throw the punches and it can get so messy.
Yeah, absolutely it can. But that's kind of my challenge, is to look beyond all of the yucky stuff, because even though it's over, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. There could be positive on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the stuff that goes on and whatnot is just the stuff. But always try to remember, it's not the end. There's always more. There's always another challenge. And stay positive. Try to stay positive in all of those moments.
And notice what things make you step away from positivity. Yeah. If there's certain people that you're around and after I've been around these people, I'm not going to be a very positive person. Well, maybe that's not the time to step into a deep conversation with your partner.
But that's also work for you to look deeper into why is this person triggering me to get into this state, right?
Yeah.
So there's the positive side of that. Now I get to do more work because now I get to look at myself deeper than...
And it almost becomes you can get yourself to a point where every single quote unquote negative experience that you have is almost like an invitation to just heal even more, or at least that's where I try to see it. And even after, because there is times, someone cuts me off in traffic and I'm calling them not the nicest of names or whatever it might be, but you kind of notice, oh, did it again. Okay. So I'm just going to hold myself accountable for that and recognize when people do this while I'm driving or whatever it might be, that it's my reaction and I need to work on that. And sometimes it's, oh, I noticed the reaction, but within like 2 seconds, I remembered, right, I don't want to react to that anymore. And so that kind of space in between where when you were a younger person, you might have reacted and then told the story like 20 times that day to all your coworkers and all your friends about the guy who cut you off. And then the following day, and then a year later, you still remember and you bring it up every once in a while. Do you know what I mean? So you're still reacting to it for a long time after it happened, where you can actually stop yourself in the moment and go, oh, there's that reaction again.
Not doing this anymore.
I don't want it into I don't want to dance with this. Yeah. That's not the right word I'm looking for, but it's the word that's coming to me right now. Interact. I don't want to interact with this reaction. Yeah. So you can kind of pause yourself there and just notice, okay, it happened again. What was happening right before then? Can I remember that? Can I catch myself next time? And I know you've been working on this.
Yeah, and it's then tracing that back is, okay, where did this come from, right? So I get really annoyed by bad drivers. I assume, a lot of people do. Where I would get really worked up about it. Now it's more like, wow, at least I have the time to smell the roses or take it slow or whatever. This person's in such a rush. Okay, well, that's not my reality. So I'm trying to look at the positive to what my observation or my part versus what they're doing. Yeah. And focusing less on that.
Yeah. So it's all a work in progress. But I think the more you can notice where you start to go into a more negative mindset, for ladies, it might be different times of the month that you find yourself just feeling more negative or more sensitive about things in general. It might be, every time you talk to one of your parents, you go into a negative cycle or a poor me cycle, or, every time you drink a certain restaurant's coffee, it just puts you into a bad mood. So you want to notice what are the things that are triggering your negativity. If it's other people's behaviors, then you can look at, why do I care about their behaviors so much? If it's their reactions to you, why am I looking to them for my validation? Like, there's all of these questions that you can ask yourself to really get curious about what pulls me down into that negativity, and also what lifts me up. Because if you're caught in a negative spiral, and especially inside the mind where everything is just bad, 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 but you don't know what actually lifts your mood up or what brings you joy again, that's something that I'd say get curious about. Because for myself, it can be as simple as throwing on a song that I love and singing along and dancing to it or whatever. It could be painting. It could be...
Well, and just needs to shift that little bit, right? Like,
Yeah.
It doesn't need to shift a whole lot. It just needs to be that one little piece that, okay, boom, it makes you change from going from that negative to that positive.
Yeah.
It's just that one slight interaction, that 1/10,000th of a second, that just needs to little break and shift, and next thing you know, everything has disappeared and everything is positive.
Yeah. It was a few years ago, I was reading the book E Cubed by Pam Grout, and she has E squared and E cubed, and both hold 9 different experiments to try to learn how to manifest and learn your abilities of manifesting and where you can kind of grow on things and whatever. But one of the experiments that I had to do one day was to thank everything that was happening to me. And it was the craziest positive mindset shift for me. Like, everything that could have went bad that day kind of went bad. The mayonnaise fell out of the fridge and hit the eggs and smacked the egg carton on the ground. So then I had a mess of eggs and mayonnaise to clean up. And it was like, thank you. Okay. I got cut off in traffic, and I was like, thank you. And I was being very sarcastic, by the way. Like, it wasn't a genuine thank you. And as I was backing up, there was a tree behind me that I hadn't noticed. It was like a skinny tree. And I drove backed into that, and I was like, thank you. But after a while, and even now I can feel myself like feeling the same excitement.
You can see you're getting excited.
Like, it shifted everything so much, because it seemed so ridiculous to be thanking these things that typically would piss me off or upset me or, set off some stress or whatever it might be. And to just thank it instead was incredible.
Yeah. And you can see the excitement that you're getting out of it. It reminds me of that mindfulness course that I took.
Yeah.
And remember I was saying about, like, wash your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And about, like, really wash your hands. And think about every little piece as you're washing your hands, and every little...
And, like, massaging your hands.
Yes, and actually consciously wash your hands. And think about what you're doing. And it just... Everything
Shifts
else starts to disappear. Yeah, it's like... Wow, that was an experience.
It was, because most of us aren't even in the moment.
A negative day, and if you can go and say it's washing your hands, just brushing your hair, whatever it is, but put all of your focus into that action and watch those things just dissipate away.
Yeah, because you're essentially stopping that negative feed that's happening inside of you, and you're now focusing on the hand washing, or you're saying thank you for everything that's happening, and you're shifting that energy into a more positive one, which takes me to the Cherokee story about the good wolf and the bad wolf. And that, like, I think it's an old Cherokee man has a grandson, and he's telling the grandson that everybody has 2 wolves inside of them. There's the good wolf and the bad wolf, and the good wolf is just sitting there all peaceful and nice and loving, and it's, great. And he says and then the bad one is, it's gnarly, and it's like, growling and trying to attack and whatnot. And the grandfather says to the young man, what one do you feed? And most people will actually say you keep feeding the good one so that the bad one will starve off. But the grandfather then says, well, you have to feed the negative one, because that might be the whole reason that he's negative, is because nobody wants to feed him. Yeah. And so you need to understand where is your negativity coming from? And in that moment of just washing your hands, taking a break from the negativity can help you step into the observer of what is actually happening with that negativity. Yeah. Because it's such an important piece, because you can wash your hands, or you can say thank you for these things. And those were great tools for both of us, because I know we both got a lot out of it. I want to actually go wash my hands. Like, again, my hands are like, I want that again. But to really be able to take that moment to pause and step away from what the negativity is. And then when you're after that pause, you can look back at what was the stuff that was causing this kind of negativity for me? What were the feelings that were coming up? What was I noticing about myself? Now you've become the observer to your own negative little tornado that you've got
while you're
inside.
washing your hands.
Yes, not while you're washing
When
your
you're
hands.
washing your hands, you got to focus on your hands.
Yeah.
Then you can go into being the observer and take all that stuff and go, okay, now I've lost all of this negative, whatever positionality. I can look at it from an even standpoint.
And
with clean hands.
Yes, with clean hands. But one more thing I want to add before we pull our question from the jar is that it can be so easy, even after you wash your hands, even after you do the thank you, and you're now looking at the kind of negative and you're becoming the observer to what the negative is, it can be so easy for that ego or that wounded part to just step back in and go right back into that same spiral. Yeah. So I'd say just pay attention for that. And if it happens to be like, oh, okay, I almost fell right back down in that hole that I just climbed out of. What made me get so close to the edge? Or where did I actually just fall right back into that negativity? Because unfortunately, the negativity or a negative mindset, it really is just destructive. You know, if you're here to create conscious relationships for yourself, whether it's with just yourself or with a partner or with other loved ones, you got to try and keep that positivity more highlighted for you, while also honoring whatever those negative emotions are for you and not projecting those negative emotions onto others.
And I was just going to say, I know it's been helpful for us is if you can share with your partner, like when you catch yourself, you know, when you catch yourself reacting in a way that you're like, that doesn't resonate, or you, whatever is in that negative aspect, communicate that to your partner, share and say, hey, you know what, today I was riding home and I had this reaction, but then a few seconds later I corrected and it was like, yeah, you know, that's really not worth me getting stressed out about, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Because I find when we share back and forth, it creates more of that.
Yeah.
And our reaction time to those situations become faster and faster and faster.
I agree. Because I think, and this is just a pondering that I have, but I think when we're able to speak our truth without judgment from anybody else or without shame from anybody else, so that's why I think sharing with your partner if you're able to, or with a friend if you're able to, but to be able to express it out loud and go, yeah, this is my humanness right now. You know, this is my judgment. This is my shame. This is my anger. This is where I absolutely am right now. And your partner just witnesses it. Then the hold that it has on you, I don't feel is quite as tight. It's like you get to be loved and heard and understood in that truth for yourself in that moment. Yeah. And it is just, it's such a game changer, because I think most of us, we don't share completely authentically with people. We give them half truths and kind of covered up truths or whatever, but to be able to go, this is me and all my messiness.
Too much or not enough or not clear enough, right?
Yeah. So, if you guys do have any questions that have been coming up for you as we've been chatting, by all means, you can throw them into the comments below. Or if you do have questions after the chat is over and you want to send them in, you can either private message Compassion with Catherine here on Facebook, or you can send us an email at info@compassionwithcatherine.com.
Or you can send me a thumbs up.
Yes, send John a thumbs up. Alrighty, so we're pulling from our big jar of questions here, and we're hoping it's in alignment with today's conversation.
I'm sure it will be.
Yeah. It's always my wish. So good. Ooh, what is your biggest regret?
We had this conversation.
Like we literally just had this conversation.
And what was that? Not sharing my truth. So,
because my question to you had been, what is one thing you wish you had expressed sooner?
Yeah. And I would still say that. I mean, I don't think very few people actually know the true you. You know the true you, and sometimes you don't even know the true you because you're working with, But I don't think we share our authentic selves with a lot of people. Yeah. And I know that I was definitely one of those people, and I would just wish that we could all, and I would say that's my biggest regret, because there's relationships, friendships, this, that, that I think have you shown more truth or authenticity? You never know. They could be around. I mean, relationships expire and whatnot, and that's all fine and well. But I think it's just there's not enough truth. Yeah.
No, I 100% agree, because that's when I reflect on my own life. It's like I don't necessarily regret my choices because they've led up to the moment that I'm in now. But it's all of those unexpressed truths when I had the opportunity to express those truths, and all of the all of the misunderstandings and miscommunications that ended up happening because there was things that I couldn't say out loud. Or I wasn't allowing myself to say out loud, you know, and it's interesting because my throat's getting all clogged up here, so apparently there's more regret there.
Well, I think, you know, when we started talking about this, it was like, you know, oh yeah, but then, you know, this would lead to this, would lead to this, and whatnot. But it was like, it's just, it would have been nice to have that same awareness and
absolutely
this awareness, but
because like when I think about like my own experiences and the things that I lived through when I was a young person, my mindset was never, it was not very positive. You know, it was, my parents are doing this because they don't love me. I'm worthless. I'm not deserving. I'm not good enough, blah, 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 blah. And everything that I wanted, everything I desired that I wasn't receiving, I took it on as like self-loathing. And so in not expressing even that to my parents to go, hey, is this actually what you mean? Yeah. You know?
And no fault of anybody, right? Like we're, this is the way we've evolved.
But, and this is,
but it's just,
it's everybody's human experience. As children, you know, we're watching our parents and we think, wow, they know everything and they know everything about me and they love me and these are my people and this is my family. And so we're looking at that as this feedback. But we're so innocent and we're so naive that we don't understand mom and dad have shit going on too. Mom and dad have lived an entire life before we've gotten here and they are wounded and they've got these pains. Yeah. So we take how they react to us as being a very personal message about us, and we forget our own divinity. And it's when we forget our own divinity, that to me is like the greatest regret, because now we're no longer expressing that authentic truth, which is our divinity. Yeah. I've got a lot of stuff happening here. My apologies. But not only are we not expressing that divine truth, we end up not even expressing how we're truly feeling inside as young people. Like we feel sadness, we feel ashamed, we feel judged, we feel punished, we feel alone. And we're not saying to our parents often, like, hey, I feel really alone right now. I know I had one experience when I was a kid in the hospital. And my mom was there. Like I was in the hospital for 6 weeks, I think, 5 weeks, something like, it was a very long time at London Sick Kids Hospital. And my mom was there every single day. Like she stayed at the Ronald McDonald's house. She was there constantly. And the one day I went to art club and I drew a picture of a boy and a girl walking alongside the mountain. I remember that picture because I think it was actually him that I was drawing. But so I drew this picture and I came out of the art club to go back into my hospital room and my mom wasn't there. Oh, the abandonment that I felt. And it didn't matter that she had been there for the other, 37, 38 days. It was that one day that she wasn't there that I really held on to for a very long time. And so again, in the innocence of a child, that abandonment kind of erased the time that I did have someone there. Yeah. And that's, again, that negative mindset that we all go into. And if I just... Because the nurse even said to me, sweetie, I remember it so clearly, sweetie, is there something wrong? And I was like, nope. And like get up in my bed and really swallow down the tears and stuff. And to just express that truth right then, I miss my mom. Yeah. I wanted her to be here when I got out of here. It's just, I wonder how much healing we could all have by just simply expressing our truth.
Yeah, where we could be as a society and a community as a whole. Right?
Yeah. And
we'll get there, folks.
Well, and I think we already are. I mean, you can look at the last 25 years of humanity and it's like, oh yeah, we're doing good. Yeah. We're definitely doing good. But we can always do better, because I know for myself sometimes there's still things that I you hold back, or you're afraid to say, or whatnot, afraid of how people will react. But yeah, that would be my biggest regret, is not doing the authentic truth. But also not always seeing or experiencing life through a lens of truth, I guess. Like it's,
I think
yeah.
it is both, right?
Yeah. Anyways, so that is it for us tonight. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in on this conversation. We look forward to connecting with you next Sunday night. Again, if you guys have any questions or you have any comments that you want to add in on the conversation, anything that you want us to talk about next week, by all means, send us a message, let us know, and we will be happy to add you into the conversation.
Absolutely. It would be nice to, have a two-way conversation with
you guys.
Well, three or four, whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. So send us your questions. Join in.
Yes.
Build a community.
Yes.
Positivity.
Have a great night, everyone. Enjoy yourselves.